of the day and welcome to yet another edition of the Chief Auditor Series. What a wonderful series this has been. You know, it started off as a small idea from Deepjee, and he bounced it off with me, and then we got into discussing the format and so many other aspects. The idea of the Chief Auditor Series is to get eminent people, people of high repute, people who have been there, done it in the field of internal auditing, not only chief auditors, not only team members, but people who, but academicians, technicians, I mean, you know, all kinds of people into the world of internal auditing. So today we have one such personality, a person whom I think both Deepjee and I have been knowing for last, I think 20, 25 years, a very thorough professional, a good friend, which is more important. And but I have been given the task of formally introducing Ratul Neogi to all of us. He's a Tata lifer with 30 plus years in the group, with a 17-year stint at Tata Consumers and a 13-year stint in Trent. Ratul has extensive experience in managing internal audit function in a challenging, high growth retail industry. He drives a high level of compliance while enabling businesses to drive efficiency in a low margin business. He's been creating a framework for mitigating IT related risk for a highly IT dependent business organization. Control supply chain related leakages to reduce waste stroke fraud related losses. He has worked with businesses to build control at the design stage of new initiatives. He has implemented the IFC, the ICFR-based COSO framework implementation, and has done the implementation of ERM. As head of business excellence for Trent, and this is new, something new, Ratul drives key business improvement initiatives and actively participates in the Tata Group TBEM external assessment process. He has participated and has led multiple external assessments where group companies are assessed on a framework adopted from the Malcolm Baldrige Awards in the USA. Ratul has a CMA from ICMA, PGDBM Finance, he's a CISA, and Design Thinking certification from MIT Sloan's School of Management. His hobbies are pretty interesting. It includes trekking, scuba diving, playing badminton, and table tennis. He volunteers for various social initiatives and is very, very passionate about sustainability. What a wonderful biodata, Ratul. We are all ears, not only Deepjee and me, but the entire audience that is going to review this video. We are all ears. Ratul, please go ahead.
Wonderful personality. Please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Satish and Deepjee, for giving me this opportunity to share my insights with a wider audience. Always a pleasure, Satish, to interact with you and learn from you. Both of you come from the audit fraternity, and we sort of interact, and it's always good to share and learn from each other. So without further ado, I will sort of start off my presentation. Let me see if that I can overcome the technology and
IT related risk.
So I need to share my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just give me a moment. I think my screen is visible. Yeah. Is my screen visible?
Yes, you can make it full screen. Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
So as Satish explained, I currently head the internal audit function as well as the business excellence function in Trent. As most of you would be aware, we are part of the Tata Group, and we manage certain retail stores, both in the fashion and lifestyle segment, as well as we have a tie-up with Tesco in India. So we manage the food and grocery formats in partnership with Tesco in India. Whatever I'm going to share today is my personal perspective. It may not reflect the perspective of the organization that I work for. So with that, let's move on. And both Satish and Deepjee, it would be great if we can make this as interactive as possible, where both of you please come in and share your thoughts so that it gives a well-rounded view to the audience. Moving on, as Satish mentioned, I have worked in two very diverse industries. I started my career basically with Tata Tea, which morphed into Tata Consumer now. It was, it has a long history and a very important company in the group. I had the privilege of serving that company for more than 17 years in various roles, both in finance and internal audit. That company, or as it was during those days, we started with manufacturing tea, and from there we moved to packaged tea, and now it has become a consumer facing company, and it has in a way divested in a very different manner the tea plantations from the company. So it was a huge learning experience to understand right from agricultural practices in tea, moving on to finance, internal audit functions, and then understanding the consumer side of tea. So it's an organization which spans a very wide footprint. So right from plucking that leaf that you see there, these two leaves and a bud, to reaching our cups, which we drink in the morning or evening as a refreshing cup. And in this journey, there are a lot of things that one needs to understand, one needs to learn as audit professionals, the various control points we need to understand. And that is why I feel that, understanding the industry is very important wherever we work. Moving on to my current role, if you see the environment is completely different. Here we deal in fashion. We are more available in nice malls and shops, high streets across the country. Again, this is a very different industry where we start with understanding the fashion trends. So one needs to understand how the fashion is going to trend. Then there are people who are trained and who are experienced in this field to curate fashion for our consumers, and that is what we put out every week into our stores. So while as a customer, it looked very simple to me before I joined this organization. There are many complexities and nuances. One of the things that struck me when I joined this company was, we as finance professionals understand inventory, continuously rotates. So But in this fashion industry, the inventory doesn't rotate. It sort of, has a shelf life, and it then goes out and fresh, new things come in. So it has its own challenges, its own way of working, and very, very different from what I had experienced in Tata Tea. So I start with this, and my humble submission is that wherever we are working, whichever company, whichever industry, I personally feel it is very, very important to have a thorough knowledge and grasp of the industry. Then it is, you are much better equipped to understand the nuances in the company. And also, sometimes we do say that, internal audit is not so involved in the business, and it is not mainstream and so on. But I think to a great extent, it is up to us to mainstream ourselves. And if you understand the industry, understand the business, the quality of conversation that you have with your peers, with your colleagues, and even with the CEO and the board, is very, very different, and you can bring tremendous value into the business, even from a function which may not be as mainstream as some of the other functions. At this point, I'll take a pause and ask Satish and Deepjee to come in and share some of their thoughts.
Yeah, Deepjee, go ahead.
I think it's after spending 30 years, all of us would have spent 25, 30, 35 years in industry, in internal audit, and after going through a range of industries across geographies, it's very clear that understanding the industry, when you are new as a chartered accountant or as an internal auditor, you always listen to people saying understand the industry. So at that time, you find it funny and say all industries are the same. Kya farak padta hai, everything will work out, because where purchase is purchase and sales is sales. But after spending 30 years, it's very clear that you have to understand the nuances of each industry. Each industry is different. Even within industry, verticals may be different, different segments may be different. So the understanding of industry is critical to bring out value by the internal auditor. Alcohol industry, forging industry, you take tea industry from the fields to the cup, consumer industry. How you sell tea is different from how you actually maintain the tea gardens and how you maintain the labor force in the tea gardens. How you maintain labor in a factory is different, for an engineering company, and how. So it's even management of labor, any particular process, it changes from industry to industry. So I think the overall theme may be the same, but the understanding the nuances, understanding industry, very critical.
So my perspective is that, if you are working in a diversified company, like, Reliance or Tata's, or you take L&T's of the world, Aditya Birla Group. I mean, some of the companies where I've worked, not of course in the Tatas, but if you work in a diversified company, you'll find that even as youngsters, you'll find that 1 month you are actually spending time in one power plant, and in the next month you would be probably doing an audit of an airport, airport under construction. And third month you would probably doing some electrical and automation factory, audit. And so therefore each business is completely different. The fundamentals may remain the same, like as Deepjee said, buy, move, sell, whatever concepts are there, but the way in which things happen is completely different, and that's why understanding the business. We used to have a feedback system in one of the companies where we used to take a feedback from the auditees. While we would get good numbers on all parameters, understanding the business, I mean, the business guys are very, very particular about this, and that was always the lower score that we used to get. So there is food for thought in this thing, and much as you may know it, I think the distance, that much more is still left to be covered. Good point.
Absolutely.
Very, very good start to the presentation.
Okay, so on that note, let's move ahead. I think, if you look at our audit fraternity, we are equipped with the best in class certifications, if I may say so, uh, across. And right now, we also have access to global certifications. So I think as a audit fraternity, we are blessed to have such good strong institutes which enable us to hone our ability, our skills, and produce good quality of people. And it is then up to us where we take this learning and how we sort of use that learning and implement that learning in our workplaces. So I think from creating that base perspective, I think in India we have a very good set of institutes, very good set of certifications that is available to us. And I'm very encouraged to see youngsters today opt for multiple certifications, and increasing their ability to uh, therefore imbibe and implement what they have learned in their places of work. Moving on.
Just one thought, since this is interactive,
Yes.
one thought, Ratul.
Yes, please.
If we go back to these, equipping with best in class certifications, yes, we are very fortunate, as a vibrant democracy and having critical mass of professionals, we are rendering services to the rest of the world. So internal audit in India today is rendering services to the rest of the world, and we are fortunate to have best in class certifications. But at the same time, I think on the job application, learning on the job is very important. So I think, again, all these certifications help, but the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, when an article trainee goes out to actually work in factories or industries, that really helps. Similarly, after your certification also, when you actually work as a trainee for 2-3 years in industry, that brings out the best, coupled with these certifications. So on the job training, how one gets also determines, the level of success a person will achieve, in the career.
Absolutely. I think, application of what we have learned is very important. And I think it's onus on all of us who are today in various leadership positions to provide that opportunity to youngsters.
Yes.
People, on one side, while India is expanding and there is a lot of opportunity in terms of, new companies, startups, the whole ecosystem growing. It is incumbent, I think, on all of us to train people, to help youngsters to, get up to speed with things. Maybe also mentor. I know Satish does some wonderful work,
Yes.
and I wish we, as a fraternity, also, come up and spend some time or invest some time in doing so. It is something that I look at as an opportunity that we should take up individually and see how we can contribute to the fraternity.
Sure.
So moving on, the expectations from a CA. So the expectation is to be sort of a Superman. The expectation is that, on one side, you need to, give confidence to the audit committee that, the assurance part of it. On one side, there is management who feels that, value addition is equally important. And within these two large stakeholders, I think internal auditors do work with a certain set of constraints in terms of the delivery. So I think internal auditors are doing a great job in trying to balance both these things to a great extent. And beyond that, I think there is an opportunity, at least personally, I do feel so, that we need to move into areas that are more strategic in nature. That is where I think we need to move away sometimes from our comfort zone of doing things which we are very familiar and strong at, and getting into areas which may not be as familiar or as strong to us, mainly coming from a very financial kind of a background. So there, I think we need to have that courage to take that leap of faith and start somewhere, get into certain areas which are important for that company, that business, or that industry. There are many new areas which are coming up, both say, for example, in the field of data, in the field of sustainability, in the field of ESG. And I do see people who are experimenting or trying to get into these, but I think that there is a big opportunity for us as a internal audit fraternity to look at these emerging areas and see if we have the necessary skill sets, or partner with people who have the necessary skill sets to embark on some of these areas which are evolving as very important, both from a company perspective as well as where the industry is going. So that's the thought. I know it is it may not be a very mainstream kind of thing right now, but I think it would be in the horizon for many internal audit teams who are currently working on some of these areas. So any views on this from Deepjee and Satish?
Satish, your mic, Satish.
So I would say that this is again a nice point that you've raised. One of my audit committees, when I used to make the presentation, they used to always say that we want something new to be also attempted. Now, mind if we don't get any results in that, because don't be under the fear that 100% effort and 100% result. You put some areas, you do some areas, and they would also suggest, based on the experience that they had in other companies, and they would actually force us, to get into some different areas. And believe me, this thing initially was a little rattling. You get rattled, what is he telling me to look at these areas and all that. And as Ratul, you very rightly said, if we do not have the skill sets, and therefore that discourages us from, getting into these kind of unknown areas, then we must find out partner. You use the most appropriate word, partner. Not just bank on somebody else to do the work. You should partner with them and make sure that there is a flow of information to the knowledgeable partner, and also learn from that partner. So there's a lot of give and take that happens in such kind of assignments. And youngsters then become very excited about doing these kind of work. We also, because of that, because of exactly what we did, we also got people like some engineers, some IT guys coming in and wanting to be part of the audit department. So I'm fully committed on what you're saying. Thanks for bringing this perspective.
I can just add that, it is necessary for the internal auditor to move from assurance to consulting, to get into the strategic areas. Very important, because then you become a business partner with the top management, because you will find that as you become a business partner, the management starts trusting you. And when they start trusting you, they're talking about expansion, diversification, any new things which the management wants to do for the growth of the organization, they'll always bring in saying that, let us bring in the internal auditor as an advisor. So I think that really helps. So that is what is happening in many companies which I've seen, where auditors have taken the leap. As you say, courage flows from confronting our deepest fears, taken the leap, and also necessary at an operational level to build alliances with other functions, because that's how you will learn and you will get into new areas.
Absolutely. And I think it's becoming more and more important as we go along, as the businesses are also changing. See, earlier a business model lasted a very long period of time, but now with these, disruption may not be the right word, but changes are happening much faster. Uh, uh, Airbnb or you know,
Uh, since on this topic, Ratul, one question to you.
yes,
You're talking about you are handling the excellence, for the Tata Group for Trent, which is based on the Malcolm Baldrige, quality
yeah.
systems, processes. Now, is that also implemented for the internal function, number one? And what is the rub off on the internal function processes as you are going about, looking at the processes for the organization?
So this is an assessment of a company. It is not only an assessment of a particular department or a function.
Right.
So if I spend 2 minutes on it, it has 6 categories, which is starting with leadership, strategy, customer, IT, people, and processes. So it encompasses the whole company, and it is a industry agnostic model. So the same model I can apply to a TCS, I can apply to a Tata Consumer, I can apply to a Tata Power, and so on. So this model helps us to understand, using the same framework, the level of maturity of an organization of various processes and systems, which includes, amongst other things, also internal audit. So what it does is it sort of understands the level of maturity. As all of you know, that any process can be further improved. So it picks up the understanding or level of maturity through an assessment process, and gives a set of, if I may say so, next steps to the organization in its journey of maturity. So what it has helped us as an internal audit team is, one is it gives us perspective across various industries. It helps us to pick up some of the best practices, some of the good things which are happening across various group companies. It also helps us to build that process mentality, where subconsciously when we look at processes or evaluate processes, we also look at where is the maturity of that process, and typically our audits also try to recommend the next level of maturity for that process. It is, if I give you a very simple example, that if a person is making say making chairs, now tomorrow he will not be able to make an aircraft. So if I tell him that, why you are instead of making chair from tomorrow you make an aircraft, he will not. So understanding the maturity and skill sets, you'll have to tell him that maybe today you are making a chair, why don't you add a table or something like that. So we try to understand the level of maturity of the process, and then see that what is the next steps that the department or the function could undertake to improve its maturity to the next level. And we understand that it's a journey, and we also understand that we have to take the auditee along with us. If the solution is not amenable to the business, then that solution will remain on paper. It will not get to see the light of the day. So these are some of the things that help us as a team to look at processes, not only from a control perspective, but many of our recommendations are also from a process improvement perspective. So that is where the balance between assurance and value addition comes in.
Sure.
Okay, so moving on. So this is something, as Indians, we are very proud of. I'm sure it has not been easy for Kalpana to sort of scale the heights that she has achieved. Having said that, I think as any function, be it internal audit or anybody else, I think the vision of what you want to achieve is very important. We spoke about the courage and getting out of your comfort zone and being able to pursue that vision or that goal. And another thing very important is the perseverance part. As internal auditors, as in-house internal auditors, we take a lot of effort and maybe a lot of pride in the implementation part. So we have, and I'm sure many people have a mechanism for following up on the implementation, and we do that quite rigorously in terms of saying that the recommendations which are accepted are actually implemented in the way they are supposed to be implemented, and is actually helping the business, again, both from enhancing a control side as well as the improvement or the maturity of the process. So this was one. The second one is, something that I believe very passionately, is the function of curiosity. As auditors, we need to be curious about things. We need to ask questions. Some of them may be silly questions, but it doesn't matter. We need to be curious about processes. We need to be curious about what is going right, what is going wrong. We need to be curious about the various KPIs that drives the business. And in my limited experience, I have found a lot of value out of this, nature of curiosity in understanding or, coming up with certain issues or challenges that we have been able to project as an internal audit function. So I would pause here, and I'm sure Satish is eager to say something. Yes, Satish.
Yeah, absolutely. When we look at some particular process, if we keep asking why this is happening or why this should happen this way, is there some other way to do it? Is this the right way to do it? Is this the only way to do it? I mean, if you keep questioning on these things, I'm not saying from a point of view that you must find faults. And I like the way you very particularly said that we must find out the good things also. It's not necessary that we are just here to find out the bad things and we come with a laundry list of some 20 deficiencies in what we have to do. But we also need to know what's happening right. How come it is? I mean, what is the business doing to make sure it is going right, and use that depth of knowledge in other facets of our businesses or other facets of our work. I think that is a beautiful cross-pollination that can happen. And auditors, mind you, is the only or a very few people who are in the organization who have this ability or who have this empowerment to walk across businesses in a group, and walk across the entire plethora of the services and the group. And this aspect will definitely, this curiosity aspect will definitely help us in our work. Yes, Deepjee.
I think this is a very powerful statement, applicable to every internal auditor, not only internal auditor, every process owner, because you need excellence, you need to improve. So it is like, I have no special talents, I am only passionately curious. This is something applicable to every professional, I would say, every person in every phase of life, because you adopt that. And when Satish talks about, you have to not only look at what's going wrong, but also what is going right, because then benchmarking comes into play. Because once you understand what is going right, you understand that process so well, when you go in a different industry or when you go to a different process, you can apply the same thing, what is going right in this process, and you can talk about it. You can ensure that that knowledge is passed on to that process. So I think, again, if you are curious, if you are able to pick up some gems, you can pass it on to somebody else, some other process. And that's how you build, knowledge. That's how you share knowledge. That's how you, build benchmarking, etc. So I think.
True, Deepjee, because, this Indigo Airlines, when they had started the airline, they said that what is the way in which we can improve our profitability? And one way they found out was if you can do a faster turnaround time of the aircraft. And therefore, what they actually did a benchmark was, in this Formula One races, the pit stop, in 7 seconds, they change the 4 tires, they do all the oiling and everything. It's all done in 7 seconds. So they said if that much work can happen in 7 seconds, all we need to do is do a benchmark, find out how that process is happening, and make sure we create an organization where everyone understands that the time that we save here is going to add to my bonuses or going to add to the profits of the company and therefore to my bonus or whatever. So they brought about a linkage, and that's why if you see in an Indigo airline, I'm talking about when it had started, and maybe it is there true even now. You'll always see that little bit of a hurry between among everybody, right from the cleaner staff, everybody is in a hurry to push that, squeeze that time between two journeys. And I guess so. The opportunities, as you rightly said, is plenty. So these benchmarks need not happen with a like-to-like industry. It can happen just as the way Indigo did with the Formula One pit stop process.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
So I think it's the curiosity and it's the thing to go out of the box and look at things for understanding it better, and then therefore being able to bring it back to your business and make those changes. So this is something I feel as an internal auditor, we need to be very curious. We need to be curious, ask questions, understand the underlying, issues or themes or practices, which greatly helps us in our function. Moving on, this is another of the things that we need to be cognizant of, that we need to continuously unlearn and relearn. As things change, I will give you one small example of my personal learning. When I joined this profession, I realized that computers were coming up in a big way, and those days were Satish mainframe days.
Yeah.
So I learned COBOL, COBOL programming, where if you have to print one line, you have to write one page of code. And if one sentence or comma went, word here and there, then the whole program would go for a toss and you have to start all over again. So starting with that, then we moved to Lotus 123. I don't know whether both of you will recall, there was something called Lotus 123, which was very useful. Earlier, we used to use these tally sheets and, record and then calculate. So Lotus became a time saver and this thing. So Lotus went away, and then we came into this Excel world, and we continue to be in this Excel world thanks to MS Office. Then we had this PPT, which we are using for presentation and Word and so on. All helped us in this way. Today, we are using many more technologies. I have, thanks to the lockdown, I have done one course on Google Sheets.
Wow.
To understand what this is, and it's a brilliant thing. I mean, it's so intuitive and so sort of powerful that, so the journey is start from COBOL and today I don't know, or I don't recall how to do a COBOL programming, but you have to unlearn those things and keep learning these new things, which will help not only you, but also you set an example for your teams to follow. I was recently in a workshop where I was having a a coffee break with some of my colleagues, and they said that I saw your post on LinkedIn that you have done this, and I was so happy that we also enrolled in that course, and we liked it so much, and we want to show you this and show you that. So you see, it is so powerful that you lead as leaders in your function or in your company. People follow you. You may not know it, or you may not realize it, but people look up to leaders, and we have to set an example for our teams, for our functions, for our fraternity to continuously learn, continuously keep abreast of the new things. Read, there are various ways of learning today. There are so many things on YouTube. There is, so many things, so many new books coming up. Many of our leaders have written some very good articles. So there is a lot of things that is accessible today to our teams and our functions. And I think continuously we need to keep abreast of the change and keep motivating people to also keep on learning new things, which they will be then able to use.
Super. It reminded me of one very beautiful poem I had read, when you thought I wasn't looking. So the child is telling the father, when you thought that I wasn't looking, but I saw what you did. I saw that you helped somebody. I saw that you donated something. I saw that you did. So it's not necessary that you need to do something and tell it to the world. People are observing. People are observing, and the point that you made, of you yourself demonstrating this aspect is perfectly good. Our IA Bombay president is also, he completed his CIA during his term. So the world is giving n number of throwing literally opportunities. It's for us to actually look at such people instead of criticizing so many other things which we find wrong, but look at such people and get inspired from them. Beautiful, Ratul. I think this was a very, very good point.
Wonderful.
So moving on, what I feel, I've just tried to summarize a few things. I still feel that we have to do our basics right. If we have to do a bank reconciliation, that bank reconciliation is important. It may not be very, stylish or this thing, but those are basic things that we need to do it right, because our core function remains assurance. We can build value addition on top of that, but our core function remains assurance, and we need to get our basics right. End of the day, I feel team is everything. You are as good as your team, and if you help people in your team, if you build a good team, you will definitely get good results. And it is up to us to invest time, effort, energy in bringing up people in our team, and they will deliver wonderful results. And I have experienced this in both the organizations, and I would say I'm fortunate to work with some very good professionals in my team. The third point is it's all about data and more data. When we started, there was, most of the things were on paper, and we used to do sampling, and we will pick up uh, in a statistical way, look at some part of the period and provide assurance. Right now, this whole sampling thing is slowly sort of going away, and we need to be able to have systems which can work with the entire population set. So as CAEs, we need to ensure that we have the capability to work with large data sets. We have the capability to correlate data, and we have the capability to then draw out the right inferences from the data, because data is data and we need to bring out information, squeeze information out from that data. The next point is on continuous control monitoring. I think this is something which is already come up in a big way and expanding very fast. So instead of doing once in a year or once in 2 years kind of thing, you build in for your key processes, you build continuous control monitoring system, which will enable you to give far higher assurance than you are currently able to. The next point is on visualization. I personally find this to be a very powerful tool in the hands of internal auditors. Sometimes, Satish, a picture says more than 1,000 words. And these kind of visualizations, if we do it correctly, then there is no discussion, no debate, no discussion. The graph or the chart talks on, on itself. And it's a very, very powerful tool, both from an internal audit review mechanism, as also from a presentation perspective. So visualization is something which has come up in a big way. We are continuously looking at use cases for blockchain, AI, ML. These are things which, 5 years back was very, very in a nascent stage, and very maybe theoretical. We didn't have enough people using it. But as we go along, there are lots of use cases. People are using it. People are using it very judiciously and getting great value out of them. So we cannot remain in isolation of what is happening in the world, and we need to take steps. I think there are companies which are already on this journey. Some may be very mature on this journey, and some may be just starting on this journey. But these are areas which are very powerful and can give you great results. The next part is, sometimes we get into so much details that we miss the big picture. And stitching together these details to give the big picture is very important. And it gives a completely different value perspective, both from a management perspective as well as from a audit committee perspective. So it is very important to keep looking at the big picture and seeing that what is the picture that is emerging from the various issues or various observations that come up. And if we are able to stitch all that together to create a big picture, it has far greater impact than maybe 10 or 15 small issues which are put together. And last but not the least, not everything as auditors or as finance professionals, we want to dot every I and every T. It is not necessary that even businesses don't operate in 100% validation mode. Otherwise, businesses will not exist. So even if we have certain amount of confidence level on the data, I think it is worthwhile to have a discussion and bring about those things which can give the management a good view of certain issues that come up. So these are, I think, some of the thoughts that many internal audit functions may be already looking at or already doing great things on some of these things. But I think these are sort of, these are sort of things in your armory if you have, and if you hone these things, then you can take, from a TBM perspective, again, taking the function to a higher level of maturity.
Perfectly right. Common sense, they say, is so uncommon. And your point, your first point and your last point, I think this was, and everything in between was said so brilliantly. Do the basics right. I think that is the commonest thing to do. Get the basics right. You want to score a century, no doubt about it, but your basics, get the basics right. And the last point, not that, yes, if there is an investigation, certain assignments, you require some kind of 100% evidence and things like that, but not for every routine activity. I want to get it perfect, then only I will go ahead. Then gaadi aage badhega hi nahi. You will not move ahead at all. So you have to start somewhere. You have to start and then keep going and keep, as you said correctly, keep improving upon the process. So these 2 points, I think, was very brilliantly thought out. Of course, as the other points as well. Yes, Deepjee.
Yes, Deepjee, would you like to?
Yeah.
I think this is just right. As
Yeah.
Satish said, the first and last, do the basics right, and 95% confidence level.
No,
And the rest of the things, I keep speaking daily: analytics, CCM, visualization, storytelling, cases. Look at the entire universe. So this I've been speaking for the past 10 years. Continuously.
yes,
So
yes.
and team is everything. So but do the basics right. The underlying thing, which is to come out, is do the basics right.
Absolutely.
Great.
And moving on to the last bit is what this is something which is very personal to me in terms of how I feel one should operate. The first one is, be the conscience keeper of the company. As a CAE, we wear a hat of also looking at stakeholder interests, keeping the guardrails of the company in terms of any legal or statutory liabilities. And as I feel that it is not as important as what the company says, but what the company actually does, how the leadership does. So if you recall, integrity was one of the core values of Enron, but Enron, I don't think, ever believed in those core values. And while it was good to put it on the board, it was not something that maybe got practiced in the organization. So for leadership, I think it is very important to walk the talk, and people across the organization see what the leader is doing rather than hear what the leader is saying. And as a CAE, I think it is extremely important to set that example of being a conscience keeper of the company. Second is, I'm a little old school. I think there is no substitute for hard work. If you have to really do a good job, you really need to, get into the details, understand the nuances from a business aspect, and then evaluate the issues with a very objective view. The third one is again something that I believe is do every assignment as your last. Give it your best shot. I tell my team members that every assignment is for you like a white canvas. It is how you paint that canvas it is an opportunity. Every assignment is an opportunity for us to showcase our ability, and it is up to us to be able to paint that canvas in the best way possible. The next one is, sometimes we feel the constraint is more in our mind than anything else. So to overcome that mental barrier, or that constraint, I think is very important. As auditors, we move to areas where we may not have the functional skill sets. So overcoming that mental barrier of objective that this cannot be done, or this is not possible, or how will this get done, like the example Satish gave, that certain board members want some new areas to be covered. I mean, Satish, you are really, I think it's an opportunity for people working in such with such boards to be able to look at that. Sometimes, if I move to the next point, sometimes we say, oh, somebody tells us, IT tells us this is not possible, or somebody tells us that this cannot happen. We sometimes don't challenge those assumptions, and we take that as a given, or as a truth. What I've learned over a period of time is some of those assumptions need to be challenged, and many a times I have got positive answers by challenging those assumptions. So I would urge colleagues in the audit fraternity to validate and see whether that no is real no, or that no is more of that person taking a easier route, and push for changes that are required in the business. The next one is taking people along, and that includes the audit committee. As I had explained earlier, that we need to understand the maturity of the organization and peg our audit recommendations according to that maturity. Taking people along, both from business side as well as what the audit committee expectations are, so that we are able to marry both and deliver to those requirements and objectives. The next one is, again, coming from that learn, unlearn theme, is, develop some skills outside your domain. Now, most of us come from a very strong financial domain or background, and there are so many new things which are coming up. There could be sustainability, could be one. On the consumer side, there are many things which are new, which we have to imbibe and learn and expose ourselves in order to have a meaningful conversation. The whole digital piece, the whole e-commerce piece is something which is very new and very evolving space. So as audit fraternity, while we will not become experts on those areas, but we need to have basic understanding by which we can have a intelligent conversation with the process owners. And I would urge people to consider that, what are the areas that they feel are important, and equip themselves with skill sets. Nowadays, there are so many online, resources that are available, and it's just a question of interest and time. And if we are able to marry that, then I think many of us can imbibe certain new skills in areas that are important for the business. And last but not the least, I think hobbies are a great de-stress. We should find time for something which is close to our heart, and in doing that, I think it gives you that kind of balance that all of us need in order to continuously work in a high pressure area to and in so many different kinds of industry functions within a company also. So like I know Satish is a great cricket fan and a cricket player himself. All of us need to find a little corner of joy that helps us to de-stress in our lives.
Very brilliantly brought out. Very good. Very, very nicely done. I mean, all these points, all these 8 points in different colors, I think very pictorially talking about everything that one must do, all rounder, as we say in cricket also, you should be good at 2 things, at least out of the 3, batting, bowling, fielding. 2 out of 3 competencies are required. So auditors have to be all rounders. Yeah, Deepjee, you'd like to summarize?
Absolutely right. I think I agree with everything. And in fact, I had said that in an earlier presentation also, that develop skills outside the domain and hobbies are great de-stress. Peter Drucker, the renowned management guru in the world, has said that you should develop hobbies or skills outside your domain. So every 3 years, he said you should have one hobby. So for example, he himself used to study Japanese art for 3 or 6 years. Then he studied something else, So he went on to study and in great detail as an expert, not only, just as a passing, So other than his management philosophy, writing books, he used to do something 3 or 5 years, one hobby he used to pick up and master that, Yeah.
Great. So Deepjee, you would like to summarize?
Yes, please. It was a wonderful session. Ratul, if you kindly switch off the presentation, thank you very much, Ratul. It was wonderful. It is really a wonderful presentation right from the top, necessary for every internal auditor. I will take the liberty of trying to summarize. I may not be able to do justice fully because there's so many gems to be picked up along the way. I did my best to write down as much as possible, but I'll just try to take out few gems and present them. First, we talked about industry knowledge, a must. Understand the nuances of the industry. Certifications, plenty available. We need to avail of those. We need to imbibe them, and on-the-job application-oriented training. As seniors, we need to mentor people to be great internal auditors or professionals in the field. You talked about new emerging areas. Courage flows from confronting our deepest fears, not denying them. So I think new emerging areas, partner with people, build alliances, build necessary skill sets. Then you talked about 2 or 3 quotes from Kalpana Chawla, from Alvin Toffler, from Professor Einstein. I'll just pick up one because I think we have seen that in the presentation. I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious. So I think that applies to every internal auditor, every professional. We talked about learn, unlearn, and relearn from Alvin Toffler. You gave out the attributes of a CAE. I'm going to point out, do the basics right. That is the first thing and the last thing. And of course, along with that goes, analytics and CCM and, getting into AI, blockchain, examples of that, getting into artificial intelligence, visualization, storytelling, because story can tell more than simple words, have the big picture for the management, for the stakeholders. And of course, 95% confidence level. It's good. We need not bother about, being 100% ironclad things. And of course, the last slide, which you said, again, that is a icing on the cake, because we talked about an internal auditor to be a conscious keeper, no substitute to hard work, do every assignment as your last, give it everything that you have got with it, break all barriers. Constraints are only in your mind. Don't take no for an answer, challenge assumptions, take people along with you, including the audit committee, develop skills outside domain, and hobbies are great de-stressors. There's a lot of takeaway for me, Ratul, a lot of food for thought. So thank you very much for this wonderful presentation.
They say if you wait for some time, you get a better result.
Yes.
So we had to wait for Ratul to come to us, but he has come, like a dam, when you open a dam, the water just gushes, no? So that is the way. 1 hour, in fact, is less.
Absolutely. And the
So
internal audit fraternity will benefit a lot from this
From this.
presentation, Ratul.
Definitely.
see, when Satish Shenoy calls, not many people in the fraternity can say.
Thank you very much, Ratul. Thanks a lot.